My ex-wife used to hit me whenever I asked where she'd been all night. I stayed quiet for years until the day She hit me again as she usual, but it was different because this time I cried. Not screamed, not shouted, not even argued. I cried. Silent tears I couldn't control, running down my face after holding in months. No years of humiliation, confusion, and exhaustion. And she hit me. Not with her fists, not this time. With a remote. Straight to the temple, hard enough to leave a welt. You're pathetic, Hilda hissed. Crying? Really? My name is James. I'm not someone you'd look at and think victim. I'm 6 feet tall, ex-military, fairly well-built. I know how to hold my ground. But what most people don't understand is how emotional abuse, and in my case, physical too, doesn't always show up where people expect. It's not always black eyes and screaming matches. Sometimes, it's a cut so deep into your self-worth that even you don't realize how far you've fallen until you're barely a shadow of yourself. Hilda was my wife for 7 years. We met in our late 20s, me just out of the army, her already working in event planning. She was stunning, confident, and funny in a sharp, slightly dangerous way that felt like adrenaline. Our dating life was fast-paced. Spontaneous trips, expensive dates, wild nights. She made me feel alive after years of routine and regimentation. But I see it now for what it was, chaos dressed up as passion. The cracks began to show 2 years into the marriage. She'd disappear for hours without explanation, or come home at 3 a.m. smelling like bars and cigarettes. At first, I made excuses for her. She works events, I'd tell myself. She's just decompressing with friends. But the questions started. Where were you? Are you okay? Why didn't you answer my calls? And the answers came back colder and sharper every time. Don't start with your insecurity, she'd snap. You're so clingy. Or worse, she'd laugh. What? You keeping tabs on me now? Like I need permission from you. I should have left then. But I didn't. Because we had a daughter. Her name's Macy. She's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I told myself I couldn't abandon my family. I didn't want to be a weekend dad or start custody battles. I thought staying was strength. I thought enduring was noble. But enduring turned into surviving. The physical abuse didn't start all at once. It was subtle at first. A shove during an argument. A glass thrown against the wall that shattered inches from my face. She'd apologize the next day. Cry even. I don't know what comes over me, she'd say. You just get under my skin, James. You provoke me. I began walking on eggshells. Careful not to ask too much. Careful not to trigger her. My world got smaller and smaller. And nobody knew, because who would believe me? A man saying his wife beats him? I could already hear the jokes. What? She hits you with a spatula. Man up. Leave if it's that bad. The worst part is that I started to believe her version of me. That I was weak. That I was too emotional. That I was boring. Until one day, she came home from what she claimed was a work retreat, and I asked her a simple question. Why is your hotel booking showing 2 people? She went quiet, stone cold. Then she walked into the kitchen, grabbed a wine glass, and slammed it down in the sink. You think I'm cheating? She screamed. That's rich coming from a jobless loser who stays home like a housewife. For the record, I wasn't jobless. I was freelancing in cybersecurity from home. But to her, anything not flashy didn't count. That night, she kicked me out of our bedroom, told me to sleep on the couch. I lay there staring at the ceiling, listening to her laughter on the phone in the next room, and something in me broke. Not in a dramatic way. Not in a I'm done kind of way. It was quieter, like a resignation. I knew I couldn't keep doing this. The turning point came from an unexpected place. Her best friend, Naomi. Naomi and I weren't close. She was always around, Hilda's ride or die. But she was different, observant, soft-spoken. I always got the feeling she didn't entirely approve of how Hilda treated people, including me. One afternoon, Hilda had left her phone behind before storming out after another argument. Naomi came over with wine, assuming it was a girls' night. I opened the door with a swollen lip and a bandage on my cheek. She froze. What happened to your face? I said I'd hit a cabinet door. She didn't believe me. That night, she stayed. Sat with me. Asked real questions. Gave me space to answer. And for the first time in years, I spoke the truth out loud. Naomi didn't interrupt, didn't judge, just listened. That conversation changed something in me. Not because of romance. Nothing happened between us then. But because someone finally saw me, believed me, validated that what I was going through wasn't just a rough patch. It was abuse. 2 weeks later, I moved out. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell or throw her things like in the movies. I packed a single bag while she was out, left a letter on the kitchen counter, and filed for separation. Hilda went ballistic. At first, it was denial. She showed up at my temporary apartment, a friend's extra room, shouting through the door. "You're overreacting. You're embarrassing yourself." Then came the bargaining. "We can fix this. Think about Macy. Do you really want to tear our family apart?" But I held the line. For the first time in years, I had peace. And in that silence, I began to rebuild. I got a permanent place within 6 months. Reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages. Threw myself into work. Slowly regained my confidence. And Naomi? She stayed in touch. At first, it was casual. Check-ins. Friendly chats. But over time, those conversations deepened. Turned into late-night calls. Then dinners. We took things slowly, carefully. But the bond we built came from something real. Mutual respect, shared wounds, and a desire to heal, not fix. The day we made it official, Naomi looked me in the eye and said, "You know she's going to lose her mind." She wasn't wrong. When Hilda found out I was dating Naomi, she unleashed hell. Texts, voicemails, rage-filled rants accusing us of betrayal. "You're disgusting. Both of you," she shouted during a drop-off. "How long has this been going on? Were you two screwing behind my back while I was working to feed this family?" I didn't take the bait. I just calmly said, "I left because of how you treated me, not because of anyone else. Don't rewrite the story now that you're embarrassed." She looked at me like she didn't recognize me. And maybe she didn't, because the man standing in front of her wasn't the same one who used to shrink under her insults. A year after our divorce was finalized, I married Naomi. It was a small ceremony. Simple, private, joyful. Macy walked Naomi down the aisle. I didn't invite Hilda, not to be cruel, but because she had no place in what I'd rebuilt. I thought that would be the end of it, but I was wrong. 2 months after our wedding, I got a text. "James, can we talk? I made a mistake." Her message stopped me cold. "James, can we talk? I made a mistake." I stared at the screen for a full minute, thumb hovering over the reply button, heart pounding in that weird, involuntary way. Not out of love or nostalgia, but disbelief. Hilda doesn't apologize. Hilda never admits she's wrong. So to see those words, it rattled something. I thought the chapter was closed, that she'd moved on, just as I had. But the text was followed by another. "It's about Macy and us. Please just hear me out." For a split second, I wondered if something had happened to our daughter. So I called. She picked up immediately. "James," she said, voice softer than I remembered. Too soft, almost calculated. "Thank you for calling. I didn't know how else to reach you." "What's going on?" I asked. "Is Macy okay?" "She's fine. This isn't really about her. It's about us." I sighed and said nothing. Let the silence stretch until she got to the point. "I've been thinking a lot," she said. "About everything. About how I treated you. And I've realized how badly I messed things up." My grip on the phone tightened. "I should have appreciated you," she continued. "I was angry all the time and took it out on you. You didn't deserve it. I guess I thought you'd always stay no matter what I did. The apology should have meant something. But it landed hollow." "Why now?" I asked. She hesitated. "Can we meet in person? Please." I told Naomi. Of course I did. Full transparency had been the foundation of our relationship from day one. She nodded slowly. "Do you want to go?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but I need to see what this is really about." We met at a quiet cafe near the park. It was surreal, seeing Hilda dressed down. No makeup, no flashy earrings, no designer bag hanging off her shoulder like a trophy. Just jeans, a hoodie, and a woman who looked tired. She gave a tight smile when she saw me. "You look good," she said. "You too," I lied. The small talk was awkward. Forced. But then she got to it. "I'm not trying to ruin what you have with Naomi," she began. "I know I lost that right. But I also know what we had wasn't all bad. You were a good husband. A good dad. You cared." I didn't respond. I just waited. Then she dropped the twist. I'm pregnant. It hit like a punch to the gut. I blinked. Okay. She looked at me, almost pleading. It's not yours, obviously. But the father, he's not around. He ghosted me when I told him. And I've been alone, James. And you what? I said, my voice colder now. She swallowed. I thought maybe you and I could start over. There it was. The real reason. Not regret. Not love. Loneliness. Desperation. You want me to raise someone else's kid with you? I said, half laughing. You raised Macy, she shot back. She's not biologically yours either. But you were always her dad. You are her dad. And that hit differently. Because it was true. Macy is my daughter. Biologically, she isn't. I found out during the separation. Another betrayal in a long string of them. But by then, it didn't matter. I'd held her as a baby, sang her to sleep, taught her how to ride a bike. DNA didn't change what we had. But this was something else. You didn't come here because you love me, I said, keeping my tone steady. You came here because your life fell apart and you think I'll fix it. Again, she looked down, ashamed. I was angry, she whispered. You left me and then married my best friend. I was humiliated. I know I made it worse. I lashed out. But James, you were my safe place. And I destroyed it. I exhaled long and slow. Let me ask you something, Hilda. If this guy hadn't left you, would you still be texting me? She didn't answer. That was my answer. I paid for my coffee, stood up, and looked her dead in the eye. I hope you figure out, I said quietly. But I'm not your solution. Not anymore. She didn't cry. She just nodded, lips trembling. Walking away from her that day wasn't about rejecting her. It was about finally choosing me. I went home to Naomi. She was sitting on the couch, reading. She looked up when I walked in and asked, so? I told her everything. She didn't flinch, didn't judge, just listen like always. Then she took my hand and said, I'm proud of you. Later that week, I got a text from Hilda again. I won't bother you anymore. I just wanted you to know that I really did love you. I just didn't know how to be loved back. I didn't reply, not out of anger, but because I finally understood something. Not everyone deserves a second chance with you just because they finally realize your worth. Some things end, and that's okay. You move on, you grow, and sometimes you find love where you never expected it. It's strange, the kind of silence that comes after closure. Not the heavy silence that follows a fight. Not the eerie, uncertain kind that used to fill our house when Hilda slammed the bedroom door and I was left staring at the wall, wondering how we got there. This silence was different, clean, freeing. That final text from her stayed unread for hours. I saw the preview on my lock screen, stared at it, and then set my phone down. I didn't feel the urge to respond. Not out of spite. Not because I wanted to punish her. I just had nothing left to say. And that realization that I didn't need to say anything anymore was more powerful than I can explain. I used to fantasize about moments like that. Moments where she'd finally admit she was wrong, realize what she'd lost, fall apart just like I had. But when it came, it didn't feel victorious. It felt like the past had finally released me. Naomi and I grew stronger after that conversation. Something about being completely transparent, laying bare all the emotional wreckage Hilda had left behind, only brought us closer. There was no pretending, no posturing. Naomi didn't want a version of me that was polished and healed. She loved the me who had broken and rebuilt himself, piece by piece. Macy, now 10, had started calling Naomi Mama Nay on her own. She split time between our home and Hilda's. Though I'll admit, more and more, she preferred staying with us. Not because I ever said a word against Hilda, but because children sense peace. They know where warmth lives. And Hilda, for all her attempts at reconciliation, hadn't changed that much. The pregnancy she told me about in the cafe had become public. She posted ultrasound photos on social media with long captions about new beginnings and self-love. I didn't pry. I didn't need to know who the father was or what happened to him. All I knew was that she was preparing to raise another child, and I genuinely hoped, for the sake of that baby, that she'd learn something. But part of me couldn't help but wonder, did she really regret what she did to me? Or just the fact that I survived it? About 4 months after our cafe meeting, I got an unexpected call. Not from Hilda this time. from her mother. "James," she said briskly, as if we'd just spoken last week. "I'd like to talk. Can we meet?" This was a woman who once told me, right to my face, that real men don't let their wives walk all over them. She had backed Hilda through every storm, called me a soft man, and told anyone who would listen that I had abandoned the family. So no, I didn't want to meet. But curiosity got the better of me. We met in the parking lot of the church where Macy had her choir practice. She looked older, more weathered than I remembered. Her tone, however, hadn't lost its signature edge. "I'm only here because I want to understand what my daughter is doing," she began. "She's not well." I raised an eyebrow. "She's pregnant and going through things." "I get it, but what does this have to do with me?" "She won't stop talking about you," she said flatly. "She told me she messed up, that she wishes she could fix things. And now she's talking about naming the baby after you." "Jameson, can you believe that?" I blinked. "You're joking." She shook her head. "She's obsessed. It's not healthy. You're married, James." I told her that, but she doesn't care. She keeps saying he was my one good thing, and I destroyed it. I didn't know what to say to that, because on some level, I believed it. And on another, I didn't care anymore. "She's spiraling," her mom said. "And she keeps saying if you hadn't married Naomi, maybe things would have worked out." That part? That made me angry. I leaned against my car, folded my arms, and said, "Tell her this. I didn't leave because I fell in love with Naomi. I fell in love with Naomi because I finally left, because I stopped living in fear. I stopped making excuses, and I started healing. I didn't find happiness by accident. I fought for it." Her mom looked stunned. Maybe she expected me to be soft. Maybe she thought I still had a door cracked open. But that door had been welded shut. We parted ways after that. I didn't hear from Hilda again for months. Then one afternoon, during a school event for Macy, it happened. I saw Hilda on the other side of the playground. She looked tired again. Puffy face, clothes that hung awkwardly. She was holding a baby boy, no more than a few months old. She saw me, and our eyes met. She walked over, slowly. "Hey," she said. "This is Jay." I looked at the baby. He had wide eyes and a quiet curiosity. Innocent, untouched by the storm that had surrounded his life. "He's beautiful," I said honestly. She nodded. "He's a lot. Doing it alone is harder than I thought." "I bet," I replied, neutral but kind. She looked at me again, her voice low. "I don't expect anything from you. I want you to know I'm sorry. I don't think I'll ever stop being sorry." I nodded. "Thank you for saying that." She turned to go, but then paused. "You really love her, don't you?" "Yeah," I said. "I do." And that was it. The last time we ever had a deep conversation. I know people want dramatic endings. Explosive confrontations, courtroom battles, dramatic comeuppance. But life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes closure is quiet. Sometimes it looks like a baby's smile and a tired woman finally learning that not everything broken gets fixed. As for me, Naomi and I are expecting. We just found out last month. The day I held the pregnancy test in my hand, I felt this overwhelming mix of joy and peace. Emotions I never got to feel the first time around because I was too caught up in surviving. And Naomi? She cried. Happy tears. Then she looked at me and said something I'll never forget. "This baby will never have to wonder what love looks like." And she was right, because now I know what it means to be loved without fear, to be seen without being shamed, to be chosen, not out of loneliness or convenience, but out of genuine, day after day, devotion. I still have scars. There are days when the memories sneak up on me, when I question how I let it go on for so long. But then I look at where I am now, what I've built, what I've earned, who I've become, and I realize something. You can't control how people treat you, but you can absolutely control whether you keep letting them. I stayed too long, but when I left, I meant it, and I never looked back. Don't forget to subscribe for more real confessions, shocking betrayals, and ex-drama. Only on Ex Confessions Unlocked.